Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today we'll be diving into a thrilling true story film titled Unstoppable. Enjoy the recap. On his first day at Brewster Yard in southern Pennsylvania, young conductor Will Coulson takes a moment to watch his ex-wife Darcy send their son to school from a distance. He's kept at bay due to a restraining order, a result of a misunderstanding. 2 weeks prior, he had mistakenly thought Darcy was secretly texting another man, leading him to confront and threaten that man with his gun. Turns out that man was a police officer, and Darcy was merely chatting with her sister. He attempts to call Darcy one last time before heading to work, but she doesn't pick up when she notices it's him. Upon reaching the yard, he meets his new partner, the seasoned railroad engineer Frank Barnes. The others at the yard jest about Will's youth, prompting playful jabs back about their age from him. After setting a time to meet up with Frank later, Will overhears whispers that his family connections in the Union landed him the job. Elsewhere, in Fuller Yard in northern Pennsylvania, Dewey and Jaleese are tasked with relocating locomotive number 777. They're preparing for an upcoming train, which will be transporting students on an educational trip about railway safety. Jaleese observes that Dewey forgot a crucial step that would allow for air brakes, but Dewey, in his rush and fear of their boss's reaction, dismisses it, thinking it won't be a problem just for a short move within the yard. When the locomotive begins to move, Dewey realizes there's a switch that isn't set right. He sets the throttle to idle and steps out to fix the switch. But just as he does so, the throttle unexpectedly jumps from idle to full throttle notch 8, accelerating the train. Unable to catch up, Dewey watches in alarm as locomotive number 777 speeds away, now a runaway train. Elsewhere, Frank and Will have a task at hand. They need to collect 25 cars from Stanton. As they prepare, Will receives reassuring news from his brother. His attorney has scheduled a hearing to lift the restraining order. The good news is, Will doesn't need to be present for it and can focus on work. But then, in a distracted moment, Frank makes a call to one of his daughters. He's remembered he missed her birthday. His attempt to explain is met with a disconnect from her side. When Frank gets back to work, he notices Will made an error, placing the locomotive on the track in reverse. Frank chides him for the oversight, lamenting how young, undertrained folks like Will are taking over jobs from experienced workers like him. However, as hours roll on, the atmosphere in the cabin eases. They share personal stories. Will opens up about the restraining order, and Frank talks about losing his wife to cancer. Meanwhile, there's a flurry of activity at Fuller Yard. Yardmaster Connie Hooper gets word about the runaway number 777. Wasting no time, she jumps into action. Her priority is the train carrying school children. The conductor of that train is promptly informed and asked to change tracks. He succeeds, narrowly missing the speeding, unmanned number 777. Following the runaway train situation, Connie directs lead welder Ned Oldham to speed ahead in his truck to switch the train off its current path. By the time Ned reaches the designated switch, the train has already sped past at full throttle. Not giving up, Connie instructs Ned, Dewey, and Jaleese to pursue the train in their vehicles. She also contacts the police to have officers stationed at every main crossing. In one daring move, Jaleese nearly boards the runaway by grabbing its railing, but a looming signpost forces him to release his grip, causing them to fall behind once more. Back at the yard, while Frank and Will work, Will receives unsettling news over a call. The judge was not pleased with his absence at the hearing and has extended the restraining order for another month. Distraught, Will makes a work error by cutting in too many train cars, leading to another reprimand from Frank. Their squabble is interrupted by a call notifying them of the runaway train. They're advised to move their train to a siding still 10 miles off. The runaway train situation is now breaking news. Connie fields a call from a frustrated Oscar Galvin, the VP of Train Operations. He questions the train's cargo, to which Connie recalls something termed molten phenol, though she's unsure of its exact nature. Scott Werner, an inspector from the Federal Railroad Administration who was initially at the yard for an educational talk, clarifies that molten phenol is highly toxic and inflammable. Essentially, the runaway train is like a massive moving bomb. Fearing catastrophe, Connie proposes they deliberately derail the train while it's still in less populated areas. However, Galvin quickly dismisses the idea. He's concerned about the financial repercussions of losing both the train and its valuable cargo, holding on to hope they can still stop it without such drastic measures. A particularly tense moment unfolds at a mainline crossing. The police can't halt a truck in time, which collides with another truck transporting horses. With the runaway train rapidly approaching, the owners frantically work to rescue the panicked horses. Miraculously, they pull the animals to safety moments before the train demolishes the wreckage. Elsewhere, Frank faces a dilemma. He alerts the main office that due to their extra cars, they can't take the next siding. Will suggests braking, but Frank knows that might cause the train to skid. They continue on the main track, aware they might soon cross paths with the runaway. The top brass at AWVR, including its president, convene. Galvin fills Connie in on their strategy. 2 locomotives, driven by engineer Judd Stewart, will attempt to decelerate the runaway train. This will allow former U.S. Marine Ryan Scott to board it from a helicopter. Though Judd skillfully positions his locomotives to slow the train, Ryan's attempt to board goes awry. The sudden lurch of the train sends him crashing into a windshield, leaving him unconscious. With Ryan incapacitated, a new plan emerges. Judd will steer the runaway into a siding. But the relentless speed and mass of the runaway prove too much. It forces Judd's locomotives off the tracks, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that claims Judd's life. With the runaway dangerously close, an emotional Frank reaches out to his daughters over a call, expressing his love, wanting them to hear it firsthand rather than from a news broadcast. Spotting a nearby siding under repair, Frank and Will decide to make a risky maneuver. In a heart-stopping moment, they narrowly divert their train, avoiding a direct collision with the runaway. However, their lengthy train is still in harm's way, and the last boxcar is obliterated by the runaway's powerful momentum. Frank gets a heads-up from a pal at headquarters. The next town is being evacuated, and there's a plan to derail the runaway train. But Frank, having a deep knowledge of trains, is skeptical. He believes the portable derailleurs won't stand a chance against the weight and speed of the runaway. Instead, he has another plan up his sleeve. He spotted an open coupler at the back of the runaway train. If they can maneuver their engine in reverse and latch onto this open coupler, they might be able to slow down the runaway using their own brakes, especially crucial before the train hits the Stanton curve. Initially, Will deems the plan too risky, but the stakes become personal when he realizes the train is heading towards the town where his wife and child are. With newfound determination, they detach their locomotive from its cars and reverse toward the runaway. Their bold move surprises Connie, who had been kept in the dark about the derailment plan by Galvin. When Galvin gets wind of Frank's audacious idea, he dials in to confront him. But Frank has nothing left to lose. He had already been given a retirement notice. Galvin's threats ring hollow. In a moment of realization, Will grasps why Frank had been resentful towards younger trainees. The two men unite in their determination, brushing off Galvin's threats. Connie, while seemingly following Galvin's directives, covertly aids the duo. She keeps them informed about the runaway's position and speed, showing her trust in their plan over Galvin's approach. Meanwhile, as the rogue train nears the derailleurs, officers take a desperate shot to stop it. They aim for the engine's fuel cutoff button, but the sheer speed of the runaway makes their task nearly impossible. Their bullets miss the mark, and as Frank had foreseen, the derailleurs are woefully inadequate against the train's momentum. The runaway steamrolls over them, as if they weren't even there, escalating the tension further. It's a high-stakes situation. Every eye is glued to the news, including those of Frank's daughters and Will's estranged family, all praying for a miracle. Ned and the officers are in hot pursuit on the ground, trying their best to catch up to the behemoth, while Connie and Werner relay crucial information from their end. Taking Werner's advice, Frank employs a nuanced technique of alternating between full throttle and dynamic braking, as opposed to the outright counter-thrust. The objective: use tractive force to slow down the monstrous runaway train before it hits the Stanton curve, a critical point where failure might mean disaster. The battle between the two trains is heart-stopping. With Will perched outside, guiding Frank using hand signals and intermittent radio communication, their proximity to the runaway becomes both a boon and a bane. The initial connection results in the unexpected release of grain from the runaway's car, clouding their vision and complicating their already dangerous task. The duo faces another significant hurdle as they struggle to secure their locomotive to the runaway. The coupling proves troublesome, not latching on despite the pins touching. Displaying incredible bravery, Will jumps onto the connecting point, using his own body weight to force the coupler pin into place. It's a daring move fraught with danger, and he nearly pays the price, his foot getting injured in the process. Back in the cabin, the two men have a brief moment of reprieve as Will temporarily bandages his injury. But they are racing against the clock. The looming Stanton curve becomes their final battleground. As the train speeds towards the notorious Stratton curve, Frank's mind races, recalling Werner's strategic advice. He implements the tug-of-war technique, using alternating thrusts and dynamic braking in an attempt to slow down the massive force of the runaway train. The looming threat of the curve heightens their urgency. Will, nursing his injured foot, formulates a potentially game-changing plan. manually activating the handbrakes on each of the speeding cars. With the dynamic brakes and throttle now under the command of the injured Will, Frank, armed with nothing but determination, daringly climbs atop the careening train. He jumps car to car, with the wind and noise assaulting his senses as he activates each handbrake. However, their progress is hampered. The overworked traction motors give way, making the locomotive's brakes go out of commission. This causes a spine-chilling acceleration just as the curve approaches. The stakes couldn't be higher. In this tense moment, Frank, with sweat dripping and hands shaking, communicates through the walkie-talkie, providing Will with precise, step-by-step instructions to deploy the independent air brake. Through sheer grit, determination, and impeccable timing, their combined efforts steer the behemoth around the Stratton curve, narrowly avoiding a catastrophe, leaving only the echo of screeching metal and the smell of burnt rubber in its wake. The rapidly moving wheels below and the wind howling past only amplified the daunting task ahead. The unyielding momentum of the runaway train added to the suspense of the situation. As Frank mustered his strength and agility, jumping between carriages, he was faced with the seemingly insurmountable gap before the train's control cabin. Taking a deep breath, he stopped precariously on the edge, telling Will he can't make the jump. But just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar roar echoed nearby. It was Ned, with his truck cutting through the terrain, appearing as if out of a heroic epic. Drawing alongside the speeding train, he deftly maneuvered his vehicle through the chaos ensuing from a heart-stopping police chase, which culminated in a spectacular crash. In the midst of the dust and debris, Ned, undeterred, signaled to Will with fierce determination. Connie's voice, clear and resolute, crackled through the walkie-talkie, giving Will the green light. Breathing heavily and with memories of his family flashing before his eyes, Will mustered every ounce of his strength and courage. He took a leap of faith, landing with a thud on the bed of Ned's jolting truck. The deafening sounds of roaring engines, blaring sirens, and clattering rails filled the air as Ned accelerated, positioning Will for his next and most crucial jump. In a moment that seemed to defy time, Will made a death-defying leap onto the runaway train's cabin. A collective gasp from the onlookers was quickly replaced by resounding cheers and applause. Their sheer disbelief transformed into overwhelming relief as they witnessed the seemingly impossible. With sweat dripping, heart racing, and hands trembling, Will grappled with the train's controls. Drawing from depths he never knew he had, he overpowered the monstrous machine, bringing it to a triumphant and screeching halt. Rescue sirens wail as Will steps out, paramedics rushing to his side, while an emotional Darcy and their son race to embrace him. As dawn breaks, a press conference is set up, lauding the bravery of Frank and Will. The atmosphere is thick with emotion as Frank, tears in his eyes, embraces his daughters, their pride evident. Connie, with her strong and comforting presence, personally commends the duo, ensuring their heroism will never be forgotten. The aftermath of this harrowing event sees significant changes. Frank, once on the verge of retirement, is now celebrated and is granted a well-deserved promotion. Will and Darcy are reunited as Connie ascends to Galvin's former VP position. Ryan embarks on a journey of recovery. Dewey finds himself adjusting to a humbler yet stable life at a fast food joint. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and I'll see you soon.